The British monarchy, it's an institution that has survived for over 1,000 years. But how? I mean, really think about that. This isn't just some story about crowns and castles. It's the story of a dramatic evolution from absolute unchecked power to a global symbol. And in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how that incredible transformation happened.
So how did we get from, an all-powerful ruler to a symbolic figurehead on the world stage? That's the core journey we're exploring today. It's a story of survival, for sure, but more than that, it's a story of adaptation.
So let's start at the very beginning. Our story kicks off almost 1,000 years ago with one single, massive event that really laid the foundation for everything that was to come.
Okay, this timeline shows you where that journey starts. In 1066, you've got the Norman Conquest, which basically established a powerful, centralized monarchy under William the Conqueror. For the next 150 years or so, kings ruled with pretty much absolute power. But notice that final point there in 1215. That's where things start to get really interesting, because that absolute power was about to face its first real test. And that test was the Magna Carta. This document, which was basically forced on King John, was an absolute bombshell. Why? Because for the first time ever, it put a simple but totally revolutionary idea into law, that everyone, and yes, that includes the monarch, was subject to the law. This was the very first crack in the armor of absolute monarchy. Now, this idea of limiting a monarch's power, well, it didn't resolve itself overnight, not even close. The next few centuries were basically an intense tug-of-war for control. This was an era of major crises for the crown, a time when the relationship between the monarch and the people was being fundamentally reshaped. The Tudor dynasty is the perfect example of this power struggle. First, you've got Henry VIII, who broke from the Catholic Church. Now, this wasn't just a religious move, it was a massive power grab, making the monarch the supreme head of the church in England. Then his daughter, Elizabeth I, took that power and solidified it on the world stage by defeating the Spanish Armada, turning England into a major global player. But this constant struggle between the crown and parliament, eventually, it just boiled over into all-out war. The English Civil War led to something that was just unthinkable at the time, the execution of a king, Charles I. The monarchy was actually abolished. For a brief moment, it seemed like the entire institution was over for good. This event proved that a king's power wasn't divine or absolute. It could be taken away. So what was the ultimate outcome of all this conflict? It was this fundamental shift right here. Britain moved from an absolute monarchy, where the king rules, to a constitutional monarchy, where the king reigns, but he doesn't rule. You see, power is now shared with Parliament. This is, without a doubt, the single most important transformation in the monarchy's political history. Okay, so with its political power checked at home, what was the monarchy's new purpose? Well, it found one on the global stage. As Britain built its massive empire, the crown was redefined, moving from a political force to a powerful, unifying icon. Just look at this number, 1/4. At the height of the Victorian era, 1 out of every 4 people on the entire planet lived under the British Empire. How do you unify an entity that vast and diverse? You do it with a symbol, and that symbol was the monarch. And Queen Victoria understood this new role perfectly. She deliberately crafted the monarchy's public image to be exactly this, an icon of stability, family, and morality. In an era of huge industrial and social change, she made the royal family a symbol of constancy and public duty, a real shift away from the political scandals of the past. Now we're jumping into the 20th century, and the challenges just get bigger. You've got world wars, the end of the empire, and the rise of mass media. All of this meant the monarchy had to adapt yet again if it was going to survive. And this timeline shows just how it adapted. During World War II, the monarchy provided stability with King George VI's quiet courage. Then, look at this pivotal moment in 1953. Queen Elizabeth II's coronation was televised. This was a huge deal, bringing the monarchy directly into the media age and people's living rooms. From that point on, the institution had to navigate a world where its every move was scrutinized, all while finding a new role as the empire dissolved. This quote really just sums up Queen Elizabeth II's entire 70-year reign, doesn't it? In a century of almost unbelievable change, she became the living link between tradition and modernity. She was that constant figure who provided a sense of continuity, connecting modern Britain all the way back to its long and storied history. So what's left for the monarchy today? Well, as this slide shows, its power is now entirely symbolic. It's what people often call soft power. They don't make laws, but they support hundreds of charities, they act as a focus for national identity, and they represent the UK on the world stage. This is the final form of their adaptation, from ruling to representing.
So, after 1,000 years of reinvention, that brings us to the big question. What is the future for this tradition?
You know, when you boil it all down, the secret to the monarchy's survival is this. It traded power for presence. It gave up the ability to rule in exchange for the ability to unify and to symbolize something. Its endurance isn't about commanding armies anymore. It's about being a constant, living symbol of a nation's history. And so, we're left with the question this slide poses. In a world that's constantly, relentlessly changing, what is the role of a 1,000-year-old tradition? Its survival, you have to think, will depend on how it continues to answer that very question.